Good morning, K2 Elite. It's Alana here. We hope you're enjoying our daily webinars and taking lots of value from them. Today we have Jay Pandya joining us to discuss agile ways of working. So when you blend significant experience with digital transformation, complex program management, lean startups, and agile methodologies, high standards for ethical practices, fiery passion for transformational shifts that digital technologies are bringing to our lives, and deep care for the impact our actions have on the quality of life for everyone, you meet someone like Jay, who's the founder of MVP Ventures. He's also a thought leader, powerful coach, and sound strategist, obsessed to create value for all stakeholders and in process make a positive impact on the society. Jay has worked closely with Cohen Ray in transforming our CRM system and educating the team on what it means to be an agile team. So today's webinar will be covering key challenges, agile principles to adopt in working with remote teams, and outcomes to achieve this. As always, we'll be running a Q&A at the end, so please post your questions whenever you want during the webinar, and we'll be answering them at the end. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the members area in Kajabi straight after this. Over to you, Jay.
All right, thank you, Alana, and welcome everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to share some of the agile ways of working, especially in a time like that we currently have in pandemics, right? So very excited and really honored to be part of and speaking to the K2 Elite. So thanks everyone for your time, and let's get going. I think we should start with why adopt agile ways of working and why now. First of all, this is not new. What I'm talking about is not new, has been actually practiced in a technology industry, specifically in a software development for, about a decade now. Okay. Some of the world's largest technology companies that, familiar names, they actually work this way. And I've had the privilege of learning from my experiences of working with some of these big tech companies and also applying it in my own company as well, right? Sometimes, looking at what's happening right now, the current times, this way of thinking, this way of working becomes a lot more applicable, a lot more relevant, necessary right now. So let's look at why. See, if you look at people, human beings, we want certainty, we want predictability. And in the absence of certainty and predictability, we feel insecure, right? We feel lack of confidence. That's just the nature of how we are hardwired. And current uncertainty that's happening, leads to the sense of being overwhelmed, loss of power, loss of creativity, anxiety, loss of our rational self, our rational thought. And if there was any uncertain times, I know I've been talking about this kind of uncertain times for last decade, right? Digital technologies are disrupting our lives. 21st century, the speed of change, the speed of business is incredible. And then you introduce COVID-19, coronavirus, hysteria, the mass hysteria, and this is the common experience people have across our community, across our society, across our teams, in our businesses, for a lot of business owners, a lot of our customers, suppliers, and partners. And the primary thing is just no one knows what the other end of this pandemic looks like. We have our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, say that no one knows what the other end of the pandemic looks like, right? So we now at the highest level of uncertainty that our generation has experienced. And this is what people go through. And this is, in these are the times when the agile principles, the way of thinking, the way of working makes real big difference. We have new information that keeps coming at us every day, every hour, when we need to respond and we need to pivot, right? In face of this new information, the decision that I made in my business 2 hours ago may not be relevant because something that I saw on the media broadcast and the new announcement of the government. So we used to work on a 2-weekly, monthly pivots in our companies, in a lot of technology companies. Now we are not on a weekly or 2 weekly iterations and pivot. We are now literally changing the tech every hour, every possible 15 minutes, every minute, because new information just keeps coming at us. And there are no longer guarantees or outcomes of definitives of anything anymore. So, again, it's the highest level of uncertainty and unpredictability that we experience as we go through these current times in pandemic. And you know what? The innovation and speed of delivery, I've been saying this again for last more than a decade. It's innovation is important. Speed of delivery is so critical. Now it's not an option. A lot of businesses have done okay who failed to innovate. A lot of businesses have died. Now every business, the innovation and speed of delivery is not optional. If we don't do it, we die, we perish. And that's why the need of why, thinking and adopting the agile ways of working, right, becomes a lot more relevant. In a nutshell, everyone's panicking and making it up. This is a time we can actually thrive, and really flourish. So why, so what are the key competencies we want to be looking for? Your key competencies of innovation. Fail fast. And many people ask me this question, fail fast. What do you mean fail fast? Well, when you don't know what's going to work, when you don't have certainty, you have to try different things. You have to take actions. You have to keep moving. You have to keep performing. And when you are trying different ideas, let's just accept it, you're going to fail. If the failure is going to happen, we might as well fail fast and move on to the next idea quickly. So the agile methodology, or ways of working, or the mindset, the failure is not avoided. Failure is actually embraced. Failure is welcome. Failure is celebrated. So you want to, you as a business owners, with your teams, actually want to consider the culture and the mindset of let's fail fast. Failing is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Again, for a lot of people who are not familiar with this, mindset, this methodology, this way of working, for most people, it's like failure is a bad thing. Somehow we should not be failing. When the innovation is required, you need to fail fast. Learn from that failure, move quickly to the next one. Okay, and that's where you learn from doing. The only way we will learn is not by going in our head and thinking about things. We will learn by actually doing, especially when the times are uncertain. You don't have time to navel gaze, plan, think, analyze every minute details. This is a nightmare for all the perfectionists, okay, who would like to just analyze all the detail, analyze all the information before you act. This, if those of you are like that, you will all that behavior is really coming from the uncertainty and bringing certainty to uncertain times. Listen, one thing I would say, no matter of analysis, evaluation, and thinking and navel gazing is going to cut it in these current times. So might as well start doing things. If it fails, fail fast, move quickly to the next one. Okay, you respond to the new information quickly and pivot. So that's the whole nature of being agile, thinking agile, working agile, right? You got to have a plan to execute. See, I have seen over my career last 2 decades in tech industry, okay, people misinterpret agile as making it up, not having a plan. We can do things every day. No, you got to have a plan. Not having a plan, in current times is not an excuse. You got to have a plan to execute it. It doesn't have to be a 50-page plan or a 2-page plan, but you got to develop a plan and keep revising the plan as it's needed. Okay, so always have a plan and keep revising it. That's the core of the agile thinking. And then structure and process to really bring the discipline, and that structure and process really supports the ability to move quickly with the plan, right? You're not writing a plan, or it's not producing a document. It's visual, but it's planned. The whole team can see it, and you have us enable it through structure and a process, so there is a discipline behind it, right? So those are the key competencies that I'm going to talk about. There's a lot more that I could be talking about today, but I think in the times we are in currently and the time available for this webinar, this is what's going to matter today. So first of all, let's just touch on what am I talking about when I say agile. Okay, we got to get this really clear. It's a way of working. It's a philosophy. It can be considered, some people consider it methodology, and there is an argument in the industry about whether it's a methodology or not. Not getting into that for the purpose of this conversation. Consider agile as a way of working. This way of working is powered by a set of belief. Okay, the fundamental beliefs, some principles, some practices, and some, and key approach of how, how you work. Okay. um, this is a lot more going on in this diagram, but if you start with your company values as a core foundation, understand, you believe, your beliefs that are on the, that are driven from those values, right? So, your customer first, before myself first, before my team, customer first. That's one of the belief. Respect for people, right? Failing fast, continuous improvement. We are no longer in the world of perfection. Perfection is an illusion anyway. Let's just do something and we keep improving. So, the belief of continuous improvement is better than not doing something, or, or seeking perfection. Okay, we keep improving what we are doing every day. So that's the belief structure. Then there are some core principles. And by the way, again, I did not make this up. This is not mine or innovative. This is just what Agile Manifesto. There's a bunch of material on the internet you can learn from. Okay, but key principles are, sometimes transparency, just in time. So, for a lot of people who are, ferocious planner, just in time might seem like last minute. Okay, I'm not talking, it's, yes, it could, be interpreted as last minute and ad hoc, for those of you who want certainty and a confidence before acting, but just in time is very deliberate to really allow you to move faster. Okay, building in the quality, standardization, flexibility, and principles like that. Okay, practices, then, you have certain practices that are based on those principles and beliefs to really allow you to stay on focus, stay structured, stay on the task, right? So, your daily huddles, your iterative planning. Some of you do monthly planning, some of you do quarterly planning and annual plannings. Those, I know, in a K2 community, that's quite given. Um, in agile ways of working, you plan every week. It's a weekly plan. You plan every day, right? That's as a part of your huddles and a status checks. Okay, retrospective. So retrospective is a time when you plus the whole team really come back and reflect. Reflect on the last week. What are the things that's working well? Let's keep doing it. What are the things that's not working well? We need to improve. And then there are actions that come out of those retrospective for improvement. And then what are the things that puzzles us? Okay, and this is happening at the level of the team. So, if any uncertainty questions, I'm not sure how do I do this, that gets resolved as a team. Okay, so retrospective, again, it's a good practice to have on a weekly basis. And then showcase, again, this is a terminology that comes from a software development or a technology industry, where technical teams are building products and are building a software. um, when the times are uncertain and the requirements, software keeps changing, the team has to show to the users, the customer, the stakeholders, what they worked on, what did they build. You apply the same concept to the team, any business. Let's show what did we work on. If you're developing a new product, you're developing a new service propositions, don't take 3 months to go and develop it. You have taken certain type of actions during a week. You go and show something to your customer. You go and show something to the wider range of stakeholders. What do you think? Take feedback. So, and then that feedback allows you to plan your next week. And you are literally in the iterative improvement cycles. So critical to stay engaged with our customers, so critical to keep talking to them, to keep showing, them what new things we are doing, rather than waiting for it all perfection before we get out there in the market. Okay, this is not the time to do that. That's why this particular agile practice from software or tech industry, very relevant, very applicable, because let's just accept it, every business had to innovate, every business had to change the business models, product and service. While you are developing it, show it to the market, show it to the customer. It's incredibly valuable. And take the feedback so that your product and service, when you reach to the end state, is actually driven from your customer and a stakeholder feedback, and ends up being a product that they need and that they want, versus the product that you created in your head. Okay, showcase is so critical. And then you got to have an approach. Okay, so approach is, you come up with the idea, you do some preliminary investigation and discovery, including some market research and talking to some people, and then you move into the delivery. So, and that's a cyclical process. Okay, so this is the pyramid. um, we live and breathe by this on an everyday basis in all of our companies and a portfolio of companies in MVP Ventures. But really, this is the way you can live life. This is the way life will hopefully get easier during these times of pandemic. Okay, here's the essential thing: treat every new idea, every new initiative as a project. Okay, one of part of what our focus today is, how do you accomplish things fast, in the times of, how do you innovate fast? What are the key benefits we can draw from these agile ways of working? I would encourage everyone listening, watching this webinar, this video recording, think about every new idea, every new initiative in your business as a project. Okay, and bring a degree of discipline to manage it as a project. It might, for many of you, it might feel like slowing down. A lot of people have the tendency to just jump and start doing. We're going to go through how you do that in a structured process way, and really apply a rigorous project methodology. Okay, all right, these are the times when you want to move from collaboration across departments that involves handovers and siloed decision making to co-creation, high bandwidth collaboration, joint delivery, shared responsibility, and continuous integration. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes, many times when I've introduced this concept to different teams or different organizations, different companies, people go, what, are you asking us to move away from collaboration? Many times my answer is just to drive some emotions and confrontation. Yes, I'm asking you to move from collaboration, because what happens in collaboration, here's what happens in collaboration. Traditional organizations, you have an idea, and if you look at, you have a idea that goes through different departments. Your teams may not be structured this way, but there will be a design function. There will be a team who is like manufacturing, manufacturing or delivery of a service, or actually manufacturing of products and goods. Then there is a finance department. Then there is a legal department. Then there is a HR. Then there is a technology department internally, or you might have external suppliers or partners who provide the tech services. Then there's a marketing department. Then there is sales team. Then there is operations and delivery, and then there's customer support. Now, your different businesses may not be structured this way, but different teams adopt these functions regardless of how your business is structured, right? These are the core functions that are there. What happens is, under the guise of collaboration, idea has to go through all these departments. When it doesn't go through some department or some function, two things happens. Handover. If it goes through these departments, you have a handover. It starts here, then it goes there, then it goes to the next team, then it goes to the next team, then next to goes to. It actually slows down the process. When sometimes people are going, oh, we don't want to slow down the process, we need to really move fast. Inevitably, one, two, or more departments or teams will get missed out from what is happening. And you know what happens at the end of it? When the product gets shipped out and you forgot your legal terms and conditions because somebody forgot to consult the lawyers, or somebody forgot to speak to the finance team, and we just launched the product out there in the market, right? So collaboration, while very commendable and normally encourage things, actually in a traditionally structured organization and traditional ways of working, slows things down. It brings the silos within the teams, the politics within the teams and all that. We cannot actually live with those times and those behaviors anymore in current climate, in current times. So what we are talking about, and again, this is a very mature agile concept. You move, not collaboration is yes, but you do it differently. It's the context is more of a co-creation. So I would encourage everyone to really move to thinking about how do we, instead of asking how do we collaborate better, we can ask a better question: how do we co-create? So what does the co-creation look like? You take representatives from different teams and formulate a squad, formulate a cross-functional, cross-department squad, team, I'm calling it squad. It's a specific terminology that we use in agile ways of working. Formulate a team around that idea. There is no hierarchy in that, but you know what, every different perspective, every specific expertise of different departments is there. So you had your idea one, you formulate a squad, right? It's like a working group, a team that comes together, brings different expertise, different kind of thinking, and they are charged with the outcome and a problem to solve. And so for every idea, you develop a squad, right? And it's not necessary that somebody who is working in one squad is full time in that squad. One person can be a part of 3 squads, but every squad has a specific mission. Every squad has a specific outcome to accomplish, and they collaborate. It's a high bandwidth collaboration. It doesn't have to go through the department leaders, team leaders. They work together in a joint responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. The squad leader is again not an organizational or a team hierarchy or structure. It's more of someone who is accountable for that outcome, knows a lot more about that problem space. So for example, if you're holding an event in your events business like Curve and Ray, then you would form a squad, some problem or some idea around the holding events or masterminds. Then someone from the events team in Curve and Ray, Claire's team, someone will become a squad leader because they are the accountable team for the events. But then every other department will come together, form a squad. The communication does not flow through the team leaders. It's just the team works together, and that's the core concept. Why we're moving away from collaboration to actually co-creation, empowering the squad to perform, give degree of autonomy. I hope that was clear in a concept and a very critical aspect. I'll move on. So remember I said earlier, there has got to be a structure, there has got to be a process. So you go take every idea, you do some initial investigation and discovery. We call it discovery. You might have some checks and balances that you want to introduce before the work gets started, the work of delivery gets started. And the delivery really in the current times, we want to increase the revenue, we want to avoid certain costs, streamline our business, we want to decrease our cost, right? So you commence your delivery cycles, and once your delivery is complete, you move on to the next idea. While you are delivering, you can see it's a circular process. You literally deliver on a weekly iterative basis, weekly, fortnightly iterative basis. So you have a circular phenomenon happening during your delivery, and once that project or that idea is complete, you move on to the next. Okay. While you are delivering, you are learning by doing. So it's very simple, but a structured delivery process. Critical to think about it. How will these concepts be applied to your environment, your team? Very critical, very valuable, that I have found, regardless of the business and regardless of the time, regardless of the teams, regardless of the nature of the business. This really works. Okay, so next thing is, how do you plan your ideas? I was banging on about planning, and it is no excuse not to have a plan, right? So how do you plan your ideas quickly without navel gazing, without seeking perfection, without spending enormous time in producing a planned document? Okay, that's what we're going to look at in this slide. So the first thing, you must define the idea. You got to define the problem. What's the problem we are solving, and what's the clear outcome that is needed? Okay, you notice I use the word outcome and not the solution, because if you come up with the idea, there might or a problem to solve, there might be a number of solutions, not one solution. You can think of maybe 2 or 3 solutions, but when you actually bring the power of the tribe, the power of the squad, there could be a lot more solutions that you never thought about, right? So in driving the innovation, you don't define the solution, but you definitely define the outcome. We want to, get to our customers fast. That's an outcome. Instead of producing our product in 3 days, we want to do it in 2 hours. That's an outcome. So you want to define the clear outcome needed. Generally, this is done by someone who came up with the idea. They are the owner of the idea. In agile terms, you can call them a product owner or a squad leader, whatever. They are the one who came up with the idea. It doesn't have to be the CEO. It can be any member of the team. It doesn't have to be the management. Any member of the team can come up with the idea. Their job, the first thing is draft the problem statement. What's the problem we want to solve? And then what's the outcome that we will accomplish? That's always the first step. Okay. Then you want to schedule a session for a cross-departmental squad to attend. And how you select the squad, basically you got to make sure that all the functions, all the teams are represented. Doesn't have to be again the team leaders, but making sure that the conversations occur across the board. Okay. Let's bring people together, share the idea, the problem, and the outcome we need. Next thing we want to do is take a bunch of sticky notes. Sticky notes, everyone should go to the office works and get bunch of the sticky notes. If you don't have one, use them plenty. Okay. As people are working remotely, people still should do this. There is a physical existence of your thought process. One sticky note, get bunch of this. You can use Trello board or Jira and other tools digitally a little bit after that, sure, but there's a definite value in physical presence. So get bunch of sticky notes. Simple rule: each of the task idea, to fulfill the idea, write it down. One sticky note, one task. If you do that, what you end up with is a bunch of tasks that needs to be to be done to really achieve the outcomes that we need. Okay, one rule, one task per sticky note. And then you're not really allowing you're not giving a structure to how people should write the sticky notes. You allow the free flow of those tasks to be written. So remember, the squad is in a room. You could have a Zoom room. Everyone's connected digitally, but everyone's writing sticky notes on their desk. One sticky note per idea, one sticky note per task. Legal team might be doing that, finance might be doing that, tech supplier might be doing that, design, marketing, sale, everyone's doing it, and they're doing it in unstructured, free flow manner. Really important to allow the juices going, right? Innovative juices going. You don't want to enforce the structure or hierarchy of managing those tasks. Okay. One thing I always encourage: don't do the discussions when you are doing this part. Okay, what are the things we need to do? I have been into hundreds and thousands of workshops where facilitator would go, what do we need to do? And then someone will suggest, oh, we'll need to do this, and then somebody will have another opinion about it. So don't have a discussion about what needs to have happen. Get people to write it down, time box it, give them 5 minutes. Everyone write down. Doesn't matter we end up with one task that is written 5 times by different squad members, no problem. It's always easy to group it later. What you want to do is no discussion, just really writing it down. This is a way to flush out people's thinking, get people out of their head and something on paper, sticky note. I also say don't use the pen. Use something like a Sharpie to actually make it so big writing. 2, 3, 4 words. We're not looking for a big description of what that task is. Sufficient 2, 3, 4, 5 words so that what that task is becomes clear. This is a high pace, intense, time box activity to really flush out the brain, brainstorming, and get things on paper. Okay, so that's what you are doing. Then you start collecting those sticky notes. One of you could be on a Zoom session, right, where everyone's watching, but you group those sticky notes, and then so you can take a photo and put those photos. One person in the squad can take the responsibility of writing this all digitally, putting it in a Trello board or a Jira or one of those tools, or even an Excel file. I really don't like Excel files. They sit somewhere on the network and nobody has the visibility of it. Okay, make it visible, make it transparent. Very important. So I would encourage avoid Excel. A lot of Word document, Excel documents, avoid it. Create visual, physical wall, Trello board from a digital perspective. Okay, let everyone identify the task to achieve those outcomes and dedicate some time. Okay, in your session, dedicate time to ask for people to ask questions. Risks, issues, assumptions, and dependencies. Again, this is not a verbal discussion. You are using sticky notes. Every question gets written down in a sticky note. So you could go, all right, team, this is the time for questions. Take 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and go silence. Everyone put their questions on a sticky note. Okay, then we have done that. All right, great. Let's compile all the questions, send the photos of your questions, what you have written, to one person who is facilitating. We'll put it on the Jira board. Okay, we will see it all consolidated manner. Next 3 minutes, we are going to identify risk. Any risk, that what can go wrong, write that down. One rule, one item per sticky note. Break it down. Then you move on to the issues. Then you move on to other things that we are assuming. Write your assumptions down. So every sticky note, if it's a risk, you can give a title R, and then you have 5 words describing that risk. Then, if it's an issue that we don't know, we need to solve, you call it, give a title of I, it's an issue, or A for assumptions, D for dependencies, right? Questions, put that on a sticky note. Then you can have a collaborative discussion, question by question by question. What that does is every member of the team had an opportunity to put their thinking on the table, rather than somebody getting lost in a group discussion, and especially introverts losing out. Okay, very powerful tool, technique, a way to get things out of people's head, and get it something in an actionable space to realize your plan quickly. Okay, and then you can group your sticky notes in a logical groups. If you have a legal task that came out, it is possible that someone in marketing or finance or sales thought of a legal task that a lawyer did not think of, because it's a time box activity, fast paced, high powered, right? So then you group it afterwards. Now what you have is a backlog of your work. So what does your backlog look like? You have a bunch of sticky notes that are grouped together. Okay, currently we are working in a remote, everyone's working from home, from their offices, whatever, right? Some of you are in hotels or beach, wherever you're working from. In a digital way, when you look at your, mostly Trello, for most people, it's a free tool. You can obviously upgrade to the pricing plans. I'm not doing marketing of Trello, or, just really feel free to use any tools. But really all of your to-do, we need to do this, we need to do that, becomes a backlog of your work. Okay, and all the sticky notes go on the physical wall. I would even encourage, to an extent, even if you are working remotely, the squad leader, someone who is going to facilitate the squad, should really have a physical wall where all the sticky notes are there, right? It makes it visual, it makes it transparent. Environment where everyone's working from home, Trello board, Jira board, very powerful. Okay, so now you have your backlog. Then what do? How do you prioritize for your backlog? How do you start? Where do you start, right? This is where I call a prioritization framework. Okay, so your prioritization framework, draw a simple picture. Okay, X and Y axis. So on y-axis, you're rating a task, or something from a value perspective. Value of 0, no value, to value of 10, very high value, right? Complexity and risk can sit on the x-axis. So when you're looking at a task, you take one sticky note, or you take one task, and you are asking a question: how high the value of this task is? How important is this? Oh, it's really important. It gets the rating of 8. And this is a collective conversation within the squad. Okay, this is really important. We need to do this. If we can't not do this, okay, so it's a rating of 8. So now we know on y-axis, where does that particular sticky note or that task sit. Then you ask the question, how hard this task is to deliver, right? How complex it is, how risky it is. And then you find its place on the map, right? So, if an easy task, less complex, less risky, but high value, will sit somewhere here. okay? And you start to plot your backlog of work against this framework. Here's what it would look like. Remember, this is not perfection, this is a speed, and this is a relativity. So this task that is sitting here with a somewhere, scoring of 8 in a value and a 2 in a complexity is sitting here. Relative to that task, this one is more complex, and same value, versus this one is less value but more complex. So it found a place here, okay? So your backlog would get distributed this manner, right? What are we looking for here? Why are we doing this? There's a reason why we are doing it, guys. We are doing this to really create a quadrant. When you bring a quadrant, you start to understand which are the high value and low complexity tasks that we can really accomplish in a fastest manner. So where should we start? Really, we should start here. Why? Because this is a high value piece of work and it's relatively low complexity. It doesn't mean that something that is high complexity and high value, you don't do it. And that's generally a subject, decision that a squad should make collectively. But as a guideline, you want to get the value fast, because in changing times, if something's going to take 3 months to do it versus something's going to take 2 days to do it, and the value is similar, you might as well get on with something that's going to take 2 days to do it, because who knows, if you allocate your resource to a task that's going to take 3 months, might still be very valuable, but the sheer amount of complexity risk that's going to take 2 or 3 months, we might not be able to afford it. And if we have to pivot and course correct, it's a waste of time of the team who spent time doing it, right? So let's see if we can do it later. We come back to it. Week number 1, this is where we start. That's the thinking. Always high value, low complexity work. That's where we keep moving. And you keep re-evaluating your backlog every week. Okay, so this is one of the key principle or a tool or technique that everyone can really take on board. Okay, definition of done. You got to agree, what does success look like? What when can we call something is done? Make sure that the done is powerful, and if there's a common language and common understanding of what a complete product and done looks like. We want to avoid different interpretation within the squad and within the stakeholders. Okay, your physical wall, how you organize, as you get into your rhythm. So that's your backlog. On a weekly basis, you commit what to do. Then as people are progressing that, it goes into doing, moves into review for somebody else to check the work, quality assurance, and then it gets done and you celebrate, right? You're making sure your daily progress is measured, updates via daily huddles, and you're really replanning the entire process of backlog on a weekly basis. Some practical guidelines: use autonomous, high performing agile squads to align with the customer needs and solving problems. The role of the management is to support the squad and set up the right environment and remove the blockers, minimize dependencies, right? If we depend on something, let's see if we can bring that skill set within the squad. Okay, co-create solutions. So we have a cross-departmental thinking, using the right people in the squad. Okay, role of the squad leaders is not a management role. Information sharing across the squads, so that you can manage the flow of information, and you allow the squads to form around the capability that is required. Okay, you prioritize the work based on value and risk complexity, and really focus on what is best for our customers. Outcomes are more important than activity or outputs. Obviously, I'm not going to repeat that. We want to keep focusing on a weekly or daily basis, focusing on the delivery of the customer value, not what do we need to do to achieve this. No more navel gazing. If you do any navel gazing, it's only on what is the customer value, right? You work iteratively, implement feedback loops. Every week you might have a retrospective session to allow the squad to reflect and keep improving and be on a cycle for ongoing improvement. Okay, you might have some measurement matrix to support the fact-based decision making. Nothing is new. Regularly reflect. right? Use agile practices like stand-ups, or in tech world it's called stand-ups, call it huddles, retrospectives, showcases. Schedule a time for the squad to show to the stakeholders what did they do. Most of you listening this, CEOs, owners of the business, if you are in the management, ask your squads to do a showcase for in a week, once a fortnight. Do showcases. Let the squad and the nature of work determine the frequency of the showcase, but showing something, even if it's a half finished, unfinished product, is so critical because you want to get the feedback loop going. Okay. Transparency and the goal alignment is so critical. Obviously use the technology, Zoom, Skype, Trello boards, etc. Encourage risk and issue identification. Many times people don't don't talk about the risk or the issues. You want to encourage them. Flush it out. Ask those questions every day. Is there a new risk? Is there a new issue? Is there something that's going to block you in accomplishing what you are working on? Make it visible. Write it down so the whole team can see it. See if there's anyone who can swarm around it to resolve it quickly. Really attack the issue, not the person who is raising the issue. Okay, very critical practice for high performing, innovative, agile teams. Attack the issue, not the person who raises the issue. Key rule to follow. Key takeaways as we come to the close of this webinar: be bold, take risks, fail fast. You want to celebrate failures. This is how you innovate. Okay, support the squads while demanding very high performance. You got to learn by doing. There is no other way of learning in this current time, especially. You learn by doing. Co-creation is better than collaboration. I love this part when I say done. Something that is complete, something that is done, is way more valuable compared to I'm still doing it and it is in progress. So your goal is to keep moving things into, from in progress or doing to it's done. It's done. You might have a version 2 of something. Come back, start again, for version 2 and improvement. But if your definition of done is aligned and you meet those criteria, that task is done. There might be more to it that we want to add. It start another task, start another version, start another iteration of it. Okay, really valuable concept to apply, guys. Limit the number of items that are always in a status of doing. Okay, to allow the team members to focus in these current times. No more than 1 or 2 tasks should be in progress or in doing. That will actually increase the productivity and speed of delivery. Go to have fun. You want to reward the success while you are celebrating the failures, making it public, right? And this is a cultural shift and a mindset shift. You celebrate the failures, make it public. At the same time, you reward the success. And the success of the squad's mission is way more important than somebody being an individual stars. So those are the key takeaways I would say that we can all learn from agile ways of working, apply it in every business during the current times of pandemic, really. But you can keep working this way even after the pandemic is over, on the other side, because this way of working is being proven to give the biggest tech companies the advantage and the world domination that they've had. This way of working is not just during the pandemic, right? It can be adopted anytime. So that's it from me, folks. We can really open it up for the questions. Elana?
Thank you so much, Jay. You're an absolute legend. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, please pop them into the question box right now. Jay is an incredible guy and he's really transformed our team. So this is the prime time for you guys to get some questions in. We've got one from Jenna saying just amazing. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Jay. We'll give you guys just a few moments just to pop in any questions that Jay has gone through today. But other than that, Jay, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, this is a time to really have fun. And I think creating a culture within the teams of speed, of doing, I can't emphasize enough about celebrating failures, giving room to people to fail, because no one knows what they're doing. Everyone's making it up anyway, right? Might as well this is the time we want ideas. We want to create a freedom for our team members to come up with the new ideas and do things, experiment with things. Then this is the time. So we want to, encourage that more and more. That's all what I would say.
Awesome. We
Okay.
do have one question
Yes.
from Carrie, and Carrie has asked, how do you deal with someone who makes constant excuses and never meets their targets?
Very good. Well, there are a couple of ways to deal with that, right? One is you actually want to get to the root cause. When you have a daily huddles, when you have a, weekly iterative meeting and reflective time for retrospective, right? Remember, it's a public conversation. You're not having one-on-one conversation. It's a public conversation within the squad, right? So somebody is consistently not hitting their targets. You want to get to the bottom of what is blocking them, and what is blocking them, what's the barrier that is there. That's not a once a week question, once a month question, or only after the fact question. That question gonna be on a daily huddle. Is there any blocker that you need to raise that's gonna stop you in fulfilling on your today's task, right? When you ask that question daily, and then if they're not, they will, you got to encourage them to talk about the barrier. What is blocking them? Is it the skill set? Is it the competency? Is it underestimation of how long will this take? Is it that they need something from somebody else in the team and they are not speaking up? Is it something that they need something from outside the company and they've just not recognized it? So when you take time to understand the blocker or a barrier daily on a weekly basis, you really you create an environment where blockers are a good thing. I'm stopped and I can't finish this. Why? And I'm blocked because let the squad come up with a solution. Now, when that keeps happening consistently over a period of time, that's when the real blocker is not identified. It might be actually a skill set. It might be, gross underestimation of the time. But the philosophy is it's never the person, it's the person is not enabled. So we want to look at what is the blocker in enabling that person, because if they are in your team, you hired them, you're a reasonably smart person, you would not hire monkeys. So let's understand, if we hired them and they are a competent person, and then what's blocking them, and management role of removing those blockers, the squad's role of removing and attacking those blockers, resolving those issues, is going to be very powerful in having that person start performing. If that continues over a period of time, you might need to really look at the individual performance management aspects that we don't have time to cover right now. But 9 out of 10 times, my experience over the last 2 decades is it's the specific blocker that we as a management or a team fails to identify, and that person starts spend all their time dealing with that blocker versus asking for help and getting the whole thinking of the squad, providing help in resolving that issue. So that's what I would do. I hope that was useful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Carrie just said thank you, Jay. And Julie has asked, how often would you redo the whole exercise, or is it ongoing and move the stickers around?
Look, generally you start with that stickers one, and then you depending on the nature of the project or the idea or initiative, typically every 2 weeks can be a good sprint. In a in a high demand, fast moving projects, the current times we are in, where you don't really can't afford a 3-month project, right? You do it every week, go through the exercise, allocate the time, 2 hours a week to really go through this process. What is our priority? If the new task, it is very much possible that once you have completed the planning, 2 days later, a new task got identified. Great. You want to encourage that. That goes in a backlog as a normal practice, unless it needs to be done today. So you did your planning on Monday, you did your wall on Monday morning, and then a task got identified on Wednesday that was that needs to be done by Friday this week, as an example. You want to avoid those scenarios, or you want to try and minimize that. Any new task goes into the backlog of work, and we will, as a team, come back, look at it next Monday morning to see when it needs to flow and what's the priority of it in terms of value versus complexity to deliver. That's the normal rhythm that I would encourage, especially in current times. If it's a longer term project, etc., you might do a 2-weekly iteration and retrospective, but short term projects, definitely do it weekly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Albert has just written, thanks, Jay. Wonderful webinar. Very helpful. We do have a few more minutes, so if anyone has those last burning questions that they can ask Jay, this is your time to shine and ask the question. Other than that, Jay, if you have anything else you'd like to add, let me know. If not, we'll just wait a little bit and see if we get any more questions in.
Look, while we wait for if there are any other questions, right? Here's what I would say. The Agile is not just a methodology. There's obviously a lot more to it. There's a bunch of material on the internet. The key aspect is it's a mindset, it's a culture, it's a thinking, it's the philosophy, right? So once you go on this process, once you embark on this journey, there's no going back. If you go back, especially as a CEOs, as a business owners, you go back, you will actually do more damage, because your teams will start loving this way of working. They'll start to, operate this way. And, if I be very frank, traditional and other ways of working, people start to get disengaged. So if you start this process, I would always say, um, you know, go with a commitment of long haul. That's all what I would add.
Awesome. We don't have any more questions, so I think we will wrap it up. Tim Boyle just said, excellent, thanks a lot. So thank you so much, Jay. We really, really appreciate all the value that you bring, not only to our community, but also to our team. So we're so grateful for you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today in the webinar as well and took their time out of their day. Just a reminder, this webinar will be posted up in Kajabi straight away in the members area just shortly after this. And keep your eye out for a post this afternoon for Monday's webinar, where we'll be joined with Sharon Pearson. Other than that, I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Lana.